When silence spoke louder than words. It began on a crisp morning when a federal judge blocked Trump's controversial border order. There were no tweets, no frantic social media outbursts. Donald Trump simply walked straight into the Supreme Court, determined to set the record straight. In the hushed corridors of the nation's highest court, the sound of a leather chair creaking was the only interruption as Trump leaned back, his eyes fixed on the TV screen mounted above the Oval Office's fireplace. The news ticker at the bottom of the screen had remained unchanged for 30 long minutes. Federal judge blocks deportation order. Trump administration in contempt. At the other end of the room, Caroline Driscoll, Trump's press secretary, hovered near the doorway. Clutching her iPad as if it were a riot shield, she knew all too well that interrupting the president in his rare moments of silence was a grave mistake. Across the room, Trump's voice broke the stillness. With a tone so flat it cut like a knife, he declared, "He thinks he's running the country now." His words were aimed squarely at Judge James Boasberg, whose ruling had cited the ancient Alien Enemies Act of 1798, a dusty statute that Trump now repurposed as a banner of modern outrage. On the coffee table before him lay a thick binder filled with annotated immigration policies, border maps, and court transcripts scrawled in red ink. Trump's eyes gleamed with defiance as he declared, "They're daring me to act out, daring me to cross a line so they can scream dictator on TV for the next 5 weeks." At that moment, from the West Wing hallway, Pam Bondi entered, dressed in dark navy with no accessories. Just a notepad and an expression that said she had weathered far worse. She calmly stated, "It's not just El Paso anymore. Boston's ruling has already slowed flights from Phoenix, Tucson, and Brownsville. ICE is scrambling." Trump's gaze shifted as he looked past the reporters and cameras, his eyes fixated on something beyond the courtroom's confines. "Somewhere out there, contempt," he murmured, almost amused. "They used to say that when I tweeted. Now they say it when I try to secure the border." Caroline's voice finally broke the silence. "Media is already circling. If we go quiet, they'll write the story for us. ICE is scrambling." Trump's tone grew stronger as he stepped back into the room, his voice resonating with a mix of indignation and resolve. "We'll give them something to write about." Pam raised an eyebrow, silently warning that she would not let a bench full of cloaked activists override the mandate of the people. "If Chief Justice Roberts wants to protect that system," she added, "then let him defend it publicly. They're calling it a constitutional crisis." The tension in the room was palpable. Trump walked to his desk, opened a drawer, and produced a folded printout of Judge Boasberg's order. Holding it aloft like a prop, he challenged, "Let's see if they still believe in transparency when the lights are on and the cameras are rolling." Pam exhaled sharply and, without a quiver, declared, "You're calling them out live, every last one of them." Trump's next words were aimed directly at Chief Justice John Roberts, starting with Roberts. "If he thinks this is about process, he hasn't been paying attention." "Contempt," he repeated softly, almost amused. Caroline tapped nervously on her iPad. "You'll be accused of politicizing the bench," she murmured, but Trump cut her off. "I'm not politicizing it. I'm exposing it." He paused, then looked over at both women. The American people didn't vote for federal judges. They voted for a president. "I'm not going to watch this system turn into a courtroom monarchy while they pretend to protect democracy." "Let them write," he said, his tone growing stronger. Pam nodded slowly. "Then we better prepare for a storm," she said. Trump smiled faintly and replied, "Let it come." Yet what started in that Supreme Court chamber was about to erupt far beyond its marble walls. Within minutes, a brief PDF document was uploaded to the Supreme Court's official site, a statement that lit up every newsroom and blog across America. Headlines screamed, "Chief Justice Roberts responds to Trump's call for impeachment." Pam Bondi read the document twice before striding into the West Wing briefing room. "This isn't a defense of the courts," she said quietly to her colleague Caroline, handing over the printout. "It's a warning." Holding it up as if it were a prop in a grand courtroom drama, he said, "Let's see if they still believe in transparency when the lights are on and the cameras are rolling." The statement was cold and calculated. Roberts had written that impeachment is not an appropriate response to a legal disagreement with a judge. The judiciary must remain independent, even when its rulings are unpopular or inconvenient. Meanwhile, Trump wasn't in the Oval Office. He was downstairs in the Roosevelt Room with Senator Felix Morton from Florida and DHS Deputy Director Carl Higdon. They had cleared their schedules the moment Roberts' statement was released, knowing full well that Trump would not sit still. As the discussion grew, Trump's rhetoric shifted. "They want us to hide behind tradition," he said, gesturing toward a digital display of Judge Boasberg's order. "They want us to be untouchable. But when a single judge can cancel your vote with a stamp, that isn't protection, that's power theft." His words, delivered with a precise calm, sent shivers through the room. With a sudden movement, Trump pulled out a copy of the Declaration of Independence. The camera zoomed in on the document as he spoke. This document didn't create kings, it dismantled them. And if we allow the judiciary to make national decisions in isolation, without consequence, we lose our republic. The room fell into a profound silence. No one dared interrupt as Trump continued. "When unelected judges erase policies without debate or vote, our republic ceases to belong to the people." Then, in a moment of searing clarity, he produced a blank sheet with a handwritten quote. "Power without accountability is not justice, it's theft." He held it high, and for a few breathless seconds, the entire chamber was stunned by the weight of his words. Outside, protesters gathered in numbers, chanting slogans for judicial independence and for a government by the people. Back in the courtroom, every major network replayed the confrontation on loop. Local radio stations in cities like Bakersfield, Fresno, Mobile, and Amarillo echo the discussions of power and silence. Conversations that had been brewing for decades now brought to a head. Later that morning, Pam Bondi entered the West Wing press room with a stack of folders clutched in her arms. "Mr. President," she said as she crossed into the Oval Office, "the reaction is louder than we thought." Trump, still sipping his coffee, merely replied, "Good. That means they heard it." Nearly 20 members of Congress had already reached out, and senators from both sides were clamoring to co-sponsor immediate legislation targeting judicial accountability. By noon, Senator Felix Martin took to the steps of the Capitol to introduce the Judicial Accountability Act, a bill proposing tighter guidelines on nationwide injunctions, mandatory review timelines, and transparency for all emergency rulings. Meanwhile, Elon Musk, ever the maverick, had already announced the launch of Courtlight from his X account, a digital tool that tracked every federal judge's active rulings in real time, lighting up a map with glowing dots that revealed which judges were blocking policy. Public ratings, profiles, and comments flowed in as Americans witnessed legal accountability like never before. Chief Justice Roberts, for his part, remained silent on the public stage, returning to his chambers to work as if nothing had changed. But behind the scenes, whispers spread among court clerks and reporters alike. There was no more illusion. The American people were now questioning whether judges, once thought inviolable, could indeed stop a president from defending the border and enforcing the law. As the day drew to a close, a handwritten sign appeared on the marble wall outside the Supreme Court. "We gave you trust, not immunity." That message resonated not only with judges, but with every elected leader and public servant who had forgotten that America is powered by people, not by process. In the weeks that followed, the Judicial Accountability Act gained bipartisan support, and Elon Musk's Courtlight app surpassed 5 million downloads, while trust in the federal judiciary dropped to unprecedented lows. Yet Trump didn't parade his victory on rallies or tweets. He returned to his desk and quietly recorded names, reminders of what happens when power goes unchecked. Across the country, conversations sparked in unexpected places, from a small apartment outside Flagstaff to a barbershop in Jackson, Mississippi, to a classroom in Yuma. People began to ask, who really runs this country? And as one high school civics teacher in Wichita Falls held up a printout of Trump's closing line for her students, a student raised his hand and said, "The rules can't protect you if they're only protecting themselves." As the day wore on, Trump and Pam Bondi's confrontation became the talk of the nation. In the end, the confrontation wasn't merely about a border order, judicial overreach, or impeachment rhetoric. It was a profound reminder that true accountability comes when the people reclaim the power that was meant to protect them. As Trump's words, Robert's measured silence, and Pam Bondi's relentless pursuit of truth echoed across America, the message was clear. If democracy is real, it lives in the voices of the people, loud, imperfect, and free. And as the cameras finally dimmed and the echoes of that historic day began to settle, one thing remained undeniable. The struggle for transparency and accountability had just taken a decisive turn, and the nation would never be the same.